Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. And specifically, welcome back to Baha'i Reflections. We're carrying on with our, systematic exploration of the Baha'i teachings. And honestly, we're just so glad you're here with us on this journey.
We really are. And actually, before we dive into this week's material, I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge how much this community has grown. Your feedback, your engagement, it really does sustain this work.
It truly does.
And just a quick but important note on that. We've noticed something interesting. While our listeners are clearly very dedicated, only about maybe 45% of you are currently subscribed to the channel.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
It was. So look, if you're getting value from these deep dives and you want to make sure you don't miss what's coming up, please just take a moment and hit that subscribe button. It's genuinely the best way to support us continuing this series.
Absolutely. And, if you're looking for even more, maybe some exclusive content or getting access a bit earlier and just connecting more deeply with what we're doing, think about becoming a channel member. We've got some exciting bonus stuff planned for members soon.
Definitely. Okay, so let's get into it. We're continuing our Ruhi Deep Dive series. This is our ongoing look at the Ruhi Institute books. And just as a reminder, these books provide a kind of structured system for Baha'is, focusing on study, yes, but really on building the capacities we need for service in our communities.
Right. It's about learning and doing, not just theory.
Exactly. It's all about putting knowledge into action.
And today, we are actually wrapping up our exploration of Ruhi Book 6, Teaching the Cause. We've arrived at the final section, section 3 of 3, which is titled The Act of Teaching. And this feels like a real pivot point.
It absolutely is. We've spent, quite a bit of time already on sections 1 and 2. We covered the spiritual nature of teaching, the inner qualities, the attitudes of, sincerity, humility, detachment, all of that.
Yeah, the foundational stuff.
Foundational is the perfect word. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to those deep dives, we really do recommend going back, because that inner preparation we discussed, it's pretty much the indispensable groundwork for the very practical discussion we're about to have today.
Because today, we're shifting gears, aren't we?
Yeah.
Moving away from the internal preparation more towards the external, the purposeful action.
That's it. Our mission for this deep dive really is to strengthen our ability, our capacity to first recognize and then nurture receptivity in others, and crucially, to develop a way of presenting the faith that's clear, cogent, and suitable for different people, different situations.
So moving from spirit into practice. From the why and how we should be to what we actually do and say.
Precisely. And the source material itself defines this act of teaching as something inherently sacred. It points out that this sacred act happens in, basically one of two main contexts. Either it's our personal individual efforts, talking to friends, colleagues, family, or it's part of collective grassroots endeavors. Things like the community building activities happening in neighborhoods and villages all over the world.
Right, the study circles, children's classes, junior youth groups, devotionals, those kinds of things.
Exactly, those collective efforts. But the essential capacity we need to develop, regardless of whether it's personal or collective, is this ability to recognize and then nurture receptivity to Baha'u'llah's message.
And it starts with prayer, doesn't it? The text emphasizes asking to be led to those souls who are prepared to hear.
It absolutely does. And that prayerful search is guided so beautifully by Baha'u'llah's own words. The text even suggests these are words worth committing to memory.
Which ones are those?
It's this passage. Whensoever ye encounter a thirsty soul, give him to drink from the cup of everlasting life. And whensoever ye find a hearing ear, recite unto him the verses of God, the powerful, the mighty, the compassionate. Unloose your tongues with kindly words, and should you find the people inclined towards the sanctuary of God, summon them to the truth.
Wow. That really captures the balance, doesn't it? Divine guidance, finding the thirsty soul, but also our part, the kindly words, the patience, summing them gently if they're inclined.
It's a perfect balance. Divine direction meets human kindness and, patience.
Okay, so let's immediately try and unpack this first major distinction the source material brings up, because I think this is something many people grapple with, the difference between the act of teaching and the act of proclamation. What's the core difference in purpose here?
This is so foundational. And you're right, it can be a stumbling block. The difference really lies in the intended outcome. Proclamation, it's highly meritorious, absolutely necessary, don't get me wrong. It serves to familiarize the wider public with the faith. Its existence, its aims, its positive attitudes. Think of it like a public broadcast.
Right.
It raises awareness.
Okay, so it's about making the faith known, creating a positive impression.
Primarily, yes. But the source material is very, very clear on this point. Proclamation alone, no matter how well done or how grand, shouldn't be expected to open the hearts of, a great many people or lead directly to immediate conversion. That's not its main goal.
So proclamation succeeds if it boosts awareness and maybe fosters a generally positive image. If that's its purpose, then what's the specific targeted goal of teaching?
Teaching is, let's say, more surgical. Its main purpose is really threefold, and it's all aimed at transformation. First, it's to assist souls in recognizing Bahá'u'lláh as the manifestation of God for today.
Okay, recognition.
Second, to help them deepen their knowledge of his revelation. It's not just knowing he exists, but understanding the teachings.
Deepening, got it.
And third, helping them become confirmed in their newly acquired faith. It's about reaching a point of conviction, of intellectual and spiritual acceptance, leading to commitment.
That implies a totally different kind of interaction then. If proclamation is often, like you said, a broadcast, maybe a talk, handing out pamphlets, unidirectional, mostly teaching must be something else entirely.
It has to be. Teaching inherently involves dialogue. It requires an intimate two-way conversation, an exchange of ideas, of perspectives between confirmed believers and those who are genuinely willing to listen and investigate the truth of the revelation.
So if there's no real back and forth, if it's mostly one person talking at others,
then you're likely still in proclamation mode, even if you don't intend to be.
Okay, let's use the fireside example from the text. Many Baha'is are familiar with this format, maybe some prayers for half an hour, then a speaker gives a presentation for, say, 45 minutes, and there's a brief Q&A, and then refreshments, and everyone goes home. The text asks, pointedly, is that teaching?
Well, that's structure, exactly as you described it. Fundamentally, it's a proclamation event. It informs, absolutely, it might inspire, but it's structured in a way that often prevents the deep, sustained exchange that's really needed for recognition and confirmation.
Because it's too unidirectional.
Largely, yes. And it often leaves the seeker to process some profoundly challenging concepts entirely on their own afterward, without the immediate opportunity for clarification or deeper exploration and conversation.
And the text also mentions this common adjustment people make, maybe adding some music, hoping it'll heighten the spiritual atmosphere. Does that actually solve the core issue? Does that turn it into teaching?
It's a nice addition, and music is certainly spiritually uplifting, but no, it doesn't solve the fundamental problem. It changes the atmosphere, maybe, but not the nature of the engagement.
No.
To truly shift from proclamation to teaching, you have to fundamentally redesign the interaction itself. It needs to be structured to foster genuine dialogue. It has to allow the seeker space to raise doubts, to explore concepts, to ask the what-if questions, and to have their path towards acceptance, that journey of recognition, deepening, and confirmation actively assisted by the believer through conversation.
So it really requires a conversation, not just a performance or a presentation.
Precisely, a conversation.
That clarity on what we're aiming for dialogue leading to transformation really dictates how we approach people.
Yeah.
Now let's shift to the who. How do we identify these receptive souls? We know we need to pray to be led to them, but what are the signs? How does this capacity develop in us?
Right, the who. The core concept here, and it's crucial, is that we need to detach the idea of receptivity from the idea of conventional religiosity. They aren't the same thing.
Okay, explain that more.
Well, a receptive person might not be actively looking for a new religion. They might even be quite skeptical about organized religion in general. What's required isn't piety in the conventional sense, but openness. A genuine willingness to learn about the teachings, to explore their truth with, a degree of humility.
So it's less about their current beliefs or practices and more about the state of their heart and mind, their willingness to engage with something new.
Exactly. Are they willing to learn? Are they willing to investigate? And the source does suggest that as a believer's own spiritual capacity sharpens through prayer, study, service, their ability to sense this condition in others, that kind of spiritual intuition, it increases.
We become more attuned to it.
You do.
Yeah.
And while, of course, every single person is unique, the text points out that we can identify certain powerful societal forces that are, right now, creating large pockets or even populations of receptive people.
Like what? What kind of forces?
Well, one key factor mentioned is when individuals become acutely aware of widespread injustice in the world. When the external systems, political, economic, social, clearly fail to provide justice or solutions, people often begin an internal search for meaning, for answers, for something more substantial. That search makes them receptive.
That makes perfect sense. When the world outside feels broken, you start looking inward or looking for a different way.
Precisely. And this leads us directly to that incredibly profound, powerful passage from Shoghi Effendi's The Advent of Divine Justice. It was written nearly a century ago, but it describes the conditions for teaching today with startling accuracy. It directly links this worldwide turmoil we're seeing with unique teaching opportunities.
Yeah, that passage is striking. He talks about the crumbling of the old order.
He does, and he identifies these specific opportunities arising from the chaos. He lists several emotional and intellectual states that come about because of this turmoil. And the Ruhi text emphasizes that these opportunities must be, well, exploited in the best sense of that word, meaning utilized, seized upon to share the knowledge of the faith's redemptive power.
Okay, let's spend some real time on this, breaking down a few of those specific states Shoghi Effendi lists. Let's try to connect the pain point the person is feeling with the specific Baha'i teaching that offers a spiritual balm or a solution.
Absolutely. Let's start with one that feels incredibly relevant today. The disillusionment which it produces.
Oh, definitely. You see that everywhere.
It's rampant, isn't it? People have been promised peace, prosperity, justice by all sorts of secular systems, political figures, various institutions, only to see those promises repeatedly betrayed by corruption, incompetence, or just inherent flaws in the systems themselves. So they lose faith not just in the leaders, but in the system itself.
They become cynical, disillusioned. So how does the faith speak directly to that specific feeling?
Well, disillusionment is fundamentally a search for genuine alternatives, for real integrity, for something trustworthy. The faith offers a coherent, unified, and practical path forward. And crucially, it's divinely sourced and protected by the covenant.
Ah, the covenant, meaning it's designed to prevent the kind of internal collapse or fragmentation due to human ambition that leads to disillusionment in the first place.
Exactly. It offers the administrative order not as just another political or clerical structure, but as a divinely conceived mechanism for organizing human society based on justice and unity. The structure itself, its integrity, its divine origin, is the very thing that disillusioned soul is searching for, whether they realize it yet or not.
Okay, that's powerful. What about another one? He mentions the perplexities which it creates.
Yes, perplexity. Think about the sheer bombardment of conflating information today. Fake news, deep fakes, moral relativism, just overwhelming data. People lose their moral and intellectual compass. They genuinely don't know who to trust or what is true anymore.
It's confusing, paralyzing almost.
It is. And perplexity is essentially the search for clarity, for reliable answers. The Baha'i teachings cut through this fog. They offer clear explanations for the fundamental nature of reality, the purpose of existence, the unity of the manifestations of God, all anchored in that eternally guiding covenant.
So concepts like progressive revelation, for example.
Precisely. Progressive revelation explains why past answers might not fully address today's complex problems. It provides clarity on history, on the present, and offers a clear vision for the future. It gives you a framework to make sense of the chaos.
It helps you navigate the confusion. Okay, one more. Let's touch on the indignation which it arouses and the revolt which it provokes. These sound more active, less passive than disillusionment or perplexity.
They are. These describe people who aren't just confused or sad, they're angry. They're demanding change, usually in response to very real, palpable injustice or oppression they see or experience. They're actively seeking righteous action.
Right. They want to do something about the problems. How are they receptive?
This group is receptive because they're actively looking for systems, for ways of life that actually institutionalize justice. And the faith doesn't just offer abstract principles or call for merely moral behavior. It calls for the establishment of a new world order based on the oneness of mankind and universal justice.
So it offers a practical outlet for that righteous anger.
It offers a constructive path for action, not destructive protest or tearing down, but active, positive service through things like community building. It channels that indignation, that desire for revolt against injustice, into building something new, something lasting, something positive.
So by understanding these kind of underlying currents in society, the disillusionment, the perplexity, the indignation, we move way beyond just looking for someone who seems outwardly religious. We're looking for people whose inner reality has been shaken up by the state of the world.
Exactly. Shaken to the point where they're ready, perhaps even desperate, for a profound transformation. That intense feeling of restlessness, of searching, that is a key indicator of openness, of receptivity.
Which leads us right to the next crucial question. Okay, we found someone who seems receptive. We've initiated a conversation. What do we actually say? What's the substance of teaching?
Ah, the million-dollar question. And the text is very clear. There's no single magic formula. You can't just read from a script. The conversation must be tailored to that individual's specific spiritual state, their background, their needs, their questions. You constantly have to reflect on the sequence, the content, the emphasis.
It has to be responsive.
Absolutely. But while it needs tailoring, the source material does provide a really helpful framework. It doesn't mean it's random. There are underlying patterns, especially when you're talking to people from similar cultural backgrounds or, say, presenting to a group of students. And the Ruhi Book gives us these two vital distinctions to keep in mind: information and concepts.
Okay, information and concepts. Let's break that down. Information seems straightforward.
It is, relatively. Information is the scaffolding, as you put it earlier. It's the basic facts the listener will naturally want or need to know. Things like, when did the faith begin? Where is its world center? What do Baha'is believe about the afterlife? What are some of the core principles, like unity or equality?
The what, when, where. The
Mhm.
basic building blocks.
Exactly. But concepts. Concepts are the architecture. They require more than just receiving a statement. They demand intellectual and spiritual understanding. This is where, honestly, many teaching efforts can fall short if we're not careful.
Okay, give me an example. If I tell someone, Baha'is believe Baha'u'lláh is the manifestation of God, that's information, right?
Correct. That's a piece of information.
But if I just leave it at that, what's the crucial concept they're missing?
They're missing the profound reality of what that means. What is God in this context? What does the station of a manifestation actually entail? What's the nature of Baha'u'llah's specific claim? Namely, that he isn't just another prophet, but the promised one of all ages, the spiritual return of Christ, Moses, Muhammad, addressing the unique needs of this specific unifying age.
So without the concepts, they might just hear founder of another religion or one more prophet in a long list.
Precisely. They might categorize him incorrectly, maybe even thinking it's a small sect or cult, because they haven't grasped the universality and the magnitude of the claim, which is rooted in the concept of the manifestation.
That distinction is huge. And you're saying the same applies to the laws of the faith.
Absolutely. Stating, Baha'is obey certain laws is purely informational. But the concept requires understanding why. It requires understanding Baha'u'llah's own description of those laws, like when he calls them the lamps of my loving providence among my servants and the keys of my mercy for my creatures.
Okay, so the concept reframes the law. It's not just a rule book, a list of do's and don'ts.
Exactly. Laws aren't meant to be a restrictive fence, but a guiding light, leading us towards spiritual growth and maturity. If the seeker only perceives law as restriction, as external imposition, they'll naturally resist it. But if they begin to grasp the concept of law as a key, a gift, a pathway to accessing divine mercy and love, then they're prepared to accept it willingly, even joyfully.
So information provides the facts, but concepts provide the meaning, the understanding, the why.
Beautifully put. And the ultimate guiding principle here, which the Universal House of Justice has emphasized, is that seekers need to be, well, enchanted by the beauty of the teachings and deeply touched by the love of Baha'u'lláh. Yes, they need basic information, but above all, they need to grasp that core central concept. Baha'u'lláh is the manifestation of God for today.
And the text gives us a fantastic, detailed example of how this plays out in practice. The conversation between Anna, who's a 17-year-old Baha'i youth, and her Catholic friend, Amelia.
Yes, this case study is incredibly instructive. Let's walk through it.
Okay. So Anna starts by setting this universal frame, right? She says the Baha'i Faith is a world religion. Its central teaching is the unity of humanity, and Baha'u'lláh is the promised one of all ages.
Yes, look how masterfully she sequences this. Introducing Baha'u'lláh right away as the promised one is so effective. Why? Because that expectation of a promised return, a coming fulfillment, exists in almost every major religious tradition.
Right, the Messiah, the Mahdi, the Maitreya Buddha, the return of Christ.
Exactly, so she connects immediately to a universal spiritual longing. And notice, she avoids getting bogged down in technical discussions of specific prophecies from different scriptures. The source material rightly points out that approach often leads to arguments and debates rather than thoughtful reflection.
Smart. Keep it focused on the fulfillment. Then she transitions to the concept of God, starting with the unknowable essence. and uses that analogy of the carpenter and the table.
Okay, this is Anna's first major conceptual pivot, and it's brilliant. Why start with the unknowable essence? Because it immediately elevates the conversation beyond simplistic, often anthropomorphic, human-conceived images of God. It acknowledges the ultimate mystery of the Creator.
Which could be really helpful for someone who struggles with traditional depictions of God, or maybe even someone agnostic or atheistic.
Absolutely. For someone wrestling with those traditional ideas, this explanation of an unknowable, transcendent essence can be intellectually liberating. It sets the faith apart from superstitious beliefs right from the start, and it connects with the soul's deep, perhaps unconscious, longing for connection with that ultimate source.
And she links it to love. God created humanity out of love. O Son of Man, I loved thy creation, hence I created thee.
And that love isn't static. It flows through what the faith calls the eternal covenant. God never abandons humanity. He consistently sends guidance through his manifestations, which naturally transitions perfectly into the next key concept, the manifestation of God.
She uses the sun mirror analogy here.
Yes. The manifestations are like perfect mirrors reflecting the light of God. The sun itself, the divine essence, doesn't descend to earth, but its light, its attributes, its guidance reach us through the intermediary of the mirror.
And crucially, all those mirrors, Moses, Krishna, Buddha, Christ, Muhammad, Bahá'u'lláh, reflect the same light.
Exactly. This simple analogy beautifully resolves the age-old conflict of religious division and claims of finality. It conveys the essential unity of the founders of the world's religions without diminishing their unique stations or missions.
And notice the language she uses, manifestation.
Very wise. Using the specific term manifestation avoids potential confusion over terms like prophet, which carries different connotations, and it sidesteps the complex theological debates around concepts like the return of Christ. She does acknowledge Christ's station as the Son of God, briefly and respectfully, aligning with Baha'i understanding, but doesn't let it derail the core principle of the unity of the manifestations.
She also weaves in quotes quite naturally, doesn't she? Like, that which the Lord hath ordained as the sovereign remedy is the union of all its peoples in one universal cause, one common faith.
Yes, and this is important. It prevents her from sounding like she's just preaching her own opinions. It lets the creative word itself work directly on Amelia's heart and mind, even if the full implications aren't grasped rationally at first. There's a power in the word itself.
And the analogies, the carpenter table, the sun mirror, they're so effective.
Incredibly. Because they convey profound, abstract spiritual truths using simple, relatable imagery. They don't require specialized jargon, and they don't talk down to the seeker. They're like intellectual anchors that make complex ideas accessible.
Okay, so she's established the relationship between God, the manifestations, and humanity. Then she pivots to the central teaching for this age, the oneness of humanity, using analogies like fruits of one tree, leaves of one branch, flowers in a diverse garden.
Right, and she immediately connects this principle to its practical implications. Achieving the oneness of humanity isn't just a nice idea, it requires conscious effort. It demands that we actively strive to align our thoughts and actions, with unity replacing thoughts of war with peace, hate with love.
And she names the biggest obstacles directly: prejudices, race, color, nationality, sex, religion.
Yes, this is crucial. She makes it clear that the faith isn't just a philosophy, it's a standard of conduct, and provides a system for action to overcome these deep-seated problems.
And it's at this point, after laying out the vision and the challenge, that Anna explicitly invites Amelia. She expresses the hope that Amelia will join the faith.
And notice the balance here. It's a warm invitation, not pressure. She's making it clear Amelia is welcome, but it's also coupled with clear expectations. Becoming a Baha'i isn't passive belief.
Right. She implies it means active participation, striving to apply the teachings, working with others to build these unified communities. It's a call to action.
It is. She uses that beautiful quote, "Baha'u'lláh has drawn the circle of unity," inviting Amelia to step into that circle and contribute. It frames joining the faith as both a privilege and a responsibility, challenging perhaps, but not overwhelming. And it sets the expectation early on that being a Baha'i involves service.
Which is so central to Baha'i community life. Okay, next, Anna focuses on the central figures themselves. For Baha'u'lláh, she highlights two main concepts: the immense suffering he endured and his tremendous influence and power.
Yeah, the basic biographical facts are important. Born 1817 in Iran, his innate knowledge, refusing high office, the decades of exile and imprisonment culminating in Akka, the most great prison. But the real depth comes from exploring the meaning behind that suffering.
And she uses that incredibly moving quote.
The ancient beauty hath consented to be bound with chains that mankind may be released from its bondage. He hath drained to its dregs the cup of sorrow, that all the peoples of the earth may attain unto abiding joy. This instantly reframes the historical facts of persecution into an act of divine sacrificial love. It creates a potential bond of devotion in the seeker's heart.
It answers the why. Why did the manifestation have to suffer? For us, for humanity's freedom and joy.
Exactly. And juxtaposed with that suffering is his immense power, the fact that the most powerful empires and courts of the time couldn't extinguish his influence. His message only spread further, the fire burned brighter despite the persecution.
Then, after Bahá'u'lláh, Anna introduces the Bab. It's essential to explain his role, right?
Absolutely. He wasn't just a precursor. He was the forerunner, but also a manifestation of God in his own right. His specific mission was to prepare the way for him whom God shall make manifest, Baha'u'lláh.
So Anna covers the key facts. Took the title The Bab, the Gate, taught for 6 intense years, prepared people for the coming of the Promised One, and his martyrdom at the young age of 31.
Yes, and she also shares one of the Bab's powerful prayers. Is there any remover of difficulties save God? Which does 2 things immediately.
Right.
It offers Amelia a concrete spiritual tool she can use right away, and it reinforces the Bab's station as a direct conduit to divine assistance.
And she cleverly links this history to the present day, explaining how Haifa and Akkad, the places of their exile and imprisonment, became the spiritual and administrative heart of the faith, home to their shrines and the seat of the universal house of justice.
Right. It shows this isn't just ancient history. It's a living, breathing, organized global faith with a visible center today.
Which leads perfectly into the next major concept, something really unique about the structure of the Baha'i Faith. The covenant of Bahá'u'lláh.
Ah, yes, the covenant.
Why does Anna bring this up now? And why is understanding this concept so critical for a seeker like Amelia?
Because the covenant directly addresses a major historical problem that has plagued almost every previous religion: disintegration after the founder's passing.
Schism and sex.
Exactly. In past dispensations, the lines of succession or authority were often ambiguous. This left the door open for ambitious individuals or doctrinal disputes to splinter the community, sometimes quite violently. A seeker, especially someone like Amelia coming from a Christian background with its history of schisms, needs reassurance that this faith has a built-in protection against that fate.
Okay, so the covenant is the central, divinely ordained mechanism that protects the faith's unity. How did Baha'u'lláh ensure this?
This is the unique genius of it. He didn't leave it to chance or interpretation. In his own explicit writings, his will and testament, he appointed his oldest son, Abdu'l-Bahá, as the sole authorized interpreter of his words and designated him as the center of his covenant.
The sole interpreter. That's unambiguous.
Completely. Abdu'l-Bahá wasn't just an administrator, he was the living exemplar of the teachings, having shared intimately in his father's sufferings and ministry. His specific function was to be the infallible guide for the entire Baha'i world after Baha'u'llah's ascension, ensuring everyone turned to one single point of reference.
And Anna briefly touches on how that line of guidance continued.
Yes, she mentions that Abdu'l-Bahá, in his own will and testament, appointed his grandson, Shoghi Effendi, as the guardian of the faith, the authorized interpreter after him. And following Shoghi Effendi's passing, the Universal House of Justice, the supreme governing body envisioned by Baha'u'lláh himself, was elected according to the provisions laid out.
So the seeker understands they aren't just joining a set of beliefs or a loose fellowship.
Precisely. They're joining a community unified by a divinely conceived administrative order. An order distinct because it has no clergy, no priesthood, and its institutions from the local to the international level are specifically designed to maintain unity and provide clear, authoritative guidance. This structure ensures the community can remain united and focused on its mission, laboring until the oneness of humankind is finally established.
Now, at this point in the conversation, the text highlights Anna's sensitivity as a teacher. She notices Amelia seems a bit overwhelmed by all this profound information.
Yes, and this is such a key teaching skill, recognizing the seeker's state.
So instead of just pushing forward, Anna decides to cover the remaining necessary topics, laws, and organization more briefly, promising they can study them more deeply later.
It's a perfect example of prioritizing receptivity over information download. The goal isn't to dump the entire syllabus on someone in one sitting. It's to keep the conversation flowing, keep the seeker engaged and open. So she transitions into laws and spiritual requirements, fulfilling that need to inform the seeker that yes, there are laws, and yes, obedience is expected.
But again, look how she frames it. Not as a list of rules or prohibitions. She goes back to that conceptual understanding. Laws are the lamps of my loving providence and the keys of my mercy. Obedience comes from love, not fear of punishment.
Exactly. The framing is everything. Then she gives us a few practical examples, always linking the law to its spiritual purpose. Prayer, for instance, daily obligatory prayer. She uses that analogy. Just as the body needs food, the soul needs prayer. It connects the law directly to our spiritual existence, our purpose.
And she shares the short obligatory prayer. I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. Again, making it immediately practical and linking law to the core purpose of life.
Then she addresses the prohibition of backbiting and calumny. Why is this one so important to introduce, even briefly?
Because unity is the goal, and backbiting destroys unity.
Precisely. It's a major enemy of unity. If the faith's central aim is to unify humanity, then any behavior that breeds mistrust, suspicion, or division within the community has to be strictly forbidden. The emphasis isn't just on not doing it, but on actively overlooking faults, seeing with the eye of forgiveness. It's a daily spiritual practice needed for a healthy, unified community.
Makes sense. Then she touches on the prohibition of alcohol and substance abuse. And again, notice the framing.
Yes, it's not presented as just a rigid moral rule. It's framed in terms of upholding the inherent nobility of the human being, maintaining the clarity of mind needed for spiritual perception and service. She uses that quote, "Noble I made thee, wherewith dost thou abase thyself?"
It gives the law a spiritual dignity. It's about protecting our potential.
It is. And finally, she mentions the law concerning education, the obligation for parents and society to educate all children, girls, and boys equally, focusing on virtue and spiritual perfection alongside academics. This connects the teachings directly back to the community-building efforts Amelia might already be involved in, showing how the faith impacts social reality.
So Anna's whole approach here, giving the context, the wisdom, the spiritual reason behind the law, rather than just listing rules or focusing on sanctions, it seems far more effective for nurturing faith.
Infinitely more effective. It's the model of gently nursing the seeker towards full understanding and acceptance, rather than demanding immediate, perfect adherence to everything, which can be overwhelming and counterproductive, especially with sensitive issues like alcohol, where support and understanding are needed alongside the principle.
Okay, so as the conversation draws to a close, Anna reinforces the idea that the faith isn't just personal belief. It's an organized religion actively working to build a world civilization. And she introduces the three key participants in this process.
Yes, the individual, the community, and the institution.
The individual. Their role is to be firm in the covenant, strive to align their life with the teachings, and actively serve humanity. And Anna uses that beautiful analogy here of our life on earth being like a child developing in the womb.
Right, developing the spiritual faculties, spiritual eyes, ears, heart, that will need to perceive and navigate the eternal worlds of God after physical death. And that development happens primarily through service to others.
Yeah, the community. This is the vital local level where people learn cooperation, practice unity, and engage in shared service. And the invitation to participate in community activities is open to everyone, friends and neighbors, regardless of whether they've formally joined the faith yet.
Which makes the threshold for initial engagement very welcoming. People can experience the spirit of the community through action.
And the third participant, the institutions. This is the administrative order, divinely conceived, not man-made. Again, emphasizing no clergy, no priesthood. She mentions the local spiritual assembly, LSA, the 9 members elected annually by secret ballot in each locality, responsible for guiding community affairs and caring for the members.
And the significance is that through this unique system of institutions, LSA, National Spiritual Assembly, ultimately the Universal House of Justice Humanity is literally learning how to govern itself justly and collectively, gradually establishing the world order envisioned by Baha'u'lláh.
So Anna concludes her conversation with a clear spiritual appeal, hoping Amelia will recognize Baha'u'lláh and feel that inner desire to become a devoted follower. Giving her a prayer book and reciting a prayer together, "Create in me a pure heart, O my God," provides such a perfect, gentle, spiritual starting point for Amelia's own journey.
It really does. That whole case study is just packed with wisdom on the art of teaching.
It absolutely is. It shows us that intimate personal side, the careful tending of that individual relationship, like a delicate flower bed. But now, we need to pivot. We got feedback that maybe we didn't spend enough time on the more systematic aspects in previous discussions. So let's really expand now on the systematic nature required for personal teaching efforts, and then the structure of collective campaigns. Because it's not just spontaneous conversations, is it?
Not at all, especially if we're aiming for sustained growth. Individual enthusiasm is wonderful, it's essential, but it needs to be channeled through a system. And we can start with the spiritual foundation for a personal teaching plan, drawing directly from Baha'u'llah's guidance.
Okay, what's that foundation?
First, recognizing that we have to consciously take our portion of the ocean of his grace. We need to be spiritually nourished ourselves. And then we use the hands of renunciation, meaning selflessness, detachment from our own ego, and desires to draw forth those life-giving waters to share with the world. Teaching starts with our own spiritual state and our detachment.
So it's spiritually contingent. We can't give what we don't have, essentially.
Exactly. And Baha'u'lláh encourages us to proclaim the cause to everyone, trusting in God, even if we feel completely alone in the effort. He says, "Be not grieved if thou performest it thyself alone. Let God be all-sufficient for thee." That directly addresses that natural fear of inadequacy or loneliness we might feel.
That's comforting. And the guidance continues. If a soul responds positively,
Then we lay bare before him the pearls of the wisdom of the Lord. We share the teachings openly, but if they reject it or aren't ready...
then we turn away and put our trust in God. What does turn away mean here? Cut them off?
No, not at all. It means we don't insist. We don't argue or pressure them. We maintain the friendship, the connection, but we respect their agency and trust the timing to God. We don't push.
Okay, so that's the spiritual bedrock. Draw grace, act with renunciation, proclaim fearlessly but gently, share generously, and detach from the results. Now, how does Shoghi Effendi build on this with a systematic personal teaching plan? This moves us from just intention to actual strategy, right?
Absolutely. Shoghi Effendi provides a very practical step-by-step framework. The first component is resolve and strategy. We have to make a firm resolve to arise, undaunted by any hindrances, whether they come from friends, foes, or our own internal doubts.
Okay, the inner commitment.
Yes. And then, crucially, we must proceed intelligently and systematically. This isn't just random encounters. It means consciously surveying the possibilities within our own specific life circumstances.
What does that look like practically? Surveying possibilities.
It means looking at your existing networks, your workplace, your family, your neighborhood, your hobbies, online communities. Who in these circles shows signs of receptivity? What are the prevailing interests or concerns? Based on that assessment, you devise a concrete strategy for engaging those specific people or groups. It's proactive, not just reactive.
So if I'm involved in, say, an environmental group, my strategy might involve finding natural ways to connect the faith's teachings on stewardship or unity to the group's concerns, looking for individuals who express a deeper longing for spiritual solutions.
Exactly, it's targeted. Which leads to this second component, methods of contact. Shoghi Effendi stresses that we must constantly devise ways to meet new people. This is critical.
Why is meeting new people so emphasized?
Because, as the source material warns, if we don't actively expand our circle of contacts, we risk exhausting all our energy year after year trying to teach the same few friends or family members who may simply not be receptive at this time. We need a flow of new connections.
So this means intentionally putting ourselves in new situations, getting out of our usual routines, maybe joining different clubs, attending community events, volunteering for new causes.
Precisely. It could mean attending lectures or exhibitions on topics related to the faith's principles, things like morality, peace, cooperation, social justice, or even giving talks ourselves on these subjects, framed in a universal way initially. It requires discipline and a conscious effort to step outside our comfort zones to generate these new opportunities for connection and dialogue.
Okay, so resolve, strategy, actively seeking new contacts. What's next?
Third is conduct. As we make these contacts, Shoghi Effendi emphasizes that we must always uphold the dignity, the laws, and the inherent universality of the faith.
We are ambassadors, essentially. Our actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely. Our character is, in many ways, the most potent proof of the teachings we're sharing. If we talk about unity but exhibit prejudice, if we talk about trustworthiness but are dishonest, if we talk about moderation but don't live it, we completely undermine the message. Our conduct has to be consistent with the principles we advocate.
Makes sense. Then comes a really critical phase, tact and nurture.
Yes. Once contact is made and a conversation begins, we have to carefully consider the individual listener's receptivity. Should we use a direct approach or something more indirect initially? And here, Shoghi Effendi points to the example of Abdu'l-Bahá. The goal is to shower such kindness, to embody the spirit of the teachings so genuinely and lovingly.
That the seeker is spontaneously impelled to investigate further and eventually join, not because they were argued into it, but because they were attracted by the Spirit.
Exactly. That spontaneous attraction, born of love and genuine connection, is the ideal. It's not about intellectual coercion or winning a debate. And this requires immense patience, especially when it comes to the laws and observances of the faith.
Right. The text says we should refrain from insisting on laws initially if they might impose too severe a strain on the seeker's newly awakened faith.
Yes. We need to patiently, tactfully, and with determination nurse them into full spiritual maturity. If someone accepts Bahá'u'lláh but genuinely struggles with, say, giving up alcohol or adhering to daily prayer immediately, we don't reject them or judge them.
We support them.
We lovingly assist them on their path, trusting that as their love for Bahá'u'lláh deepens, the strength to live according to his ordinances will grow. The spiritual journey is a process of growth, not an overnight transformation to perfection. Nurturing is key.
That's a crucial point. Okay, so after tactful nurturing, what are the final steps in this personal plan?
Integration and goal. Once a seeker is confirmed in their faith, it's vital to introduce them immediately into the life of the Baha'i community. Get them connected with other believers for constant fellowship, mutual support, and active participation in community activities. This prevents isolation, which can be a real danger for new believers.
So they feel part of the body of believers right away. And the ultimate goal of this whole personal teaching effort.
The ultimate goal, according to Shoghi Effendi, isn't just to gain a new member, it's to create a multiplying effect. We need to infuse in that new believer such a deep understanding and love for the cause that they arise independently on their own initiative to teach others and to uphold the laws themselves.
So we're not just looking for followers, we're aiming to raise up new, self-sufficient teachers and active participants in the community building process.
Precisely. That's the engine of sustainable growth.
Wow. That 6-part plan from Shoghi Effendi: resolve strategy, contacts, conduct, tact nurture, integration, goal, really provides a solid systematic framework for personal teaching. Now let's scale up. Let's talk about collective campaigns. The source material is clear. Collective action needs to be more than just the sum of individual enthusiasm.
Yes, much more. The power of collective action comes when the diverse talents and capacities of individuals are organized in such a way that they reinforce one another. Their combined powers are multiplied through unity and system.
And this is where the structure of the administrative order really comes into play, isn't it? With things like the cluster approach.
Absolutely. Expansion efforts are now largely focused geographically within clusters. These are manageable geographic areas, maybe a city and its surrounding towns, or a group of villages. This allows for focused, concerted planning and action by the Baha'is living there.
And these efforts move in cycles.
Yes, the community typically moves through systematic cycles of activity, often lasting a few months. A cycle usually involves a phase of expansion, a period of intense, coordinated action to reach out and make new friends, start new core activities. Then comes a phase of consolidation, strengthening the bonds with those new friends, deepening their understanding, ensuring the new activities are sustainable, visiting homes, enhancing participation.
Expansion, consolidation. And what's the third part?
Reflection and planning. At the end of a cycle, the community gathers often in what's called a reflection meeting to consult, share experiences, learn from both successes and challenges, analyze the data from the field, and collectively plan the activities and goals for the next cycle. It's a continuous learning process.
Okay, so these collective campaigns are systematic, cyclical, and geographically focused. Who are they primarily aimed at? The text talks about receptive populations.
Yes. And interestingly, the text suggests that large-scale receptivity today often manifests not necessarily as people explicitly seeking a new religion, but as a willingness to participate in the community-building process itself.
So receptivity is shown by action, by wanting to join in.
Often, yes. People are drawn to participate in the core activities because they see the positive impact these activities are having, maybe a children's class, bringing joy and values to the neighborhood kids, or A junior youth group empowering young teens, or a devotional gathering fostering unity. They want to be part of that positive energy.
So, teaching in this collective context often happens through inviting people not just to hear about the faith, but to participate alongside Baha'is in acts of service that benefit their own community.
Exactly. And frequently, the acceptance of Baha'u'lláh and his teachings flows naturally from that positive firsthand experience of this new pattern of community life, this spirit of service and unity in action.
So the ultimate aim isn't just individual conversions, but the movement of an entire population towards Baha'u'llah's vision for a new civilization.
That's the grand vision. The transformation begins when the masses, the general population, are awakened to these new possibilities. And we have to remember Baha'u'llah's standard here. He desires the acceptance and transformation of mankind in its entirety, not just acceptance by a select few or people of high status or distinction, which is often the world's measure of success.
And as this process unfolds in a locality, the culture itself starts to change.
Gradually, yes. It's a process of cultural transformation. Elements of the local culture that are not in harmony with Baha'u'llah's teachings, things like deep-seated prejudices, extreme materialism, corruption, tend to gradually fall away as people embrace new principles. At the same time, praiseworthy elements of that culture may be strong family bonds, traditions of hospitality, artistic expressions, cooperation are recognized, valued, and reinforced, now infused with a spiritual purpose.
So it's not about imposing a foreign culture, but about purifying and elevating the existing local culture through the light of the revelation.
Perfectly stated. It's about organic transformation from within.
Okay, for this kind of systematic, unified, collective action to actually work effectively, the source material lays out 4 absolutely essential conditions that need to be met by the community, by the believers working together.
Yes, these 4 conditions are non-negotiable, really.
The first one, and arguably the bedrock of everything, is unity.
Absolutely fundamental. And the text stresses this isn't just a vague ideal or something we affirm once a year. It requires constant, conscious, daily effort from everyone.
What does that daily effort look like?
It requires magnanimity, a nobility of spirit. It means actively rising above all the petty things that cause disunity. Things like impatience when someone makes a mistake, the desire to always get our own way or have our ideas dominate, criticizing others' shortcomings behind their backs, getting discouraged if we feel our own talents aren't being appreciated enough.
Oof, those are very real human tendencies.
They are, and the standard is high. We have to be willing to forgive these things, overlook faults, both in ourselves and others, for the sake of the progress of the cause. We have to constantly ask ourselves, am I willing to let my personal feelings, my ego, my attachment to my own way of doing things hinder this collective effort that's meant to draw souls closer to God?
The answer has to be no. The text even quotes Abdu'l-Bahá's plea here.
Yes. If any differences arise amongst you, behold me standing before your face, and overlook the faults of one another for my sake, and as a proof of your love for my manifest and brilliant beauty. It's a constant spiritual check.
Okay, so unity is paramount. What's the second condition?
Unity of purpose. This means everyone involved needs to have a shared, clear understanding of the common purpose they're working towards. This clarity needs to extend all the way from the specific goals of their local cluster activities right up to how those activities fit into the broader aims of the global plans of the faith.
So everyone understands how their piece fits into the bigger puzzle.
Exactly. When there's true unity of purpose, every individual act, whether it's tutoring one junior youth group, hosting a small devotional in your home, making phone calls for an event, is seen and felt as being consciously woven together with the larger collective undertakings. You see how your local flower bed contributes to the vast garden of the cluster, and ultimately to the establishment of the world order.
And the instant pro process helps create this unity of purpose.
Immensely. The study of the Ruhi books acts as a mediator between individual effort and collective action. By going through the same materials, using the same language, understanding the same concepts and frameworks, everyone starts moving in the same direction. It ensures our efforts are complementary and synergistic, preventing individuals from feeling isolated or their efforts being wasted.
Okay, unity. Unity of purpose. Third condition.
Tireless service. Having unity of purpose naturally inspires us to invest our time, our energy, our resources. It helps us overcome the natural human tendency towards comfort, ease, and self-indulgence.
The text contrasts the fleeting pleasures the world offers with the deeper joy of service.
Yes, it points out that the trivial pastimes the world often calls fun or relaxation pale in comparison to the real, profound, abiding joy that comes from serving humanity, from sharing this message, helping others grow, seeing communities transformed. That joy, that spiritual satisfaction, has to become the primary driving force, stronger than the pull of comfort.
And this requires striving for what the text calls the station of living sacrifice, looking to the example of Abdu'l-Bahá.
Yes, remembering his example, tireless, unresting as the sea, constantly laboring, completely detached from self, motivated purely by love for humanity and obedience to Bahá'u'lláh. That relentless, selfless service is the standard we aspire to, even if we fall short.
That's a high standard. Unity of purpose, tireless service. What's the fourth and final condition?
Learning as a mode of operation. This might sound a bit academic, but it's incredibly practical. The primary instrument for achieving and maintaining unity of thought, which underpins unity of action, is the process of consultation, but consultation deeply intertwined with action and reflection.
So it's that cycle again. Act, reflect, consult, study, plan, then act again.
Exactly. That continuous feedback loop must define how the core group of believers, the nucleus driving the activities, operates collectively. We have to see ourselves as being in a constant state of learning from experience, learning from the guidance, learning from each other. We try things, we see what happens, we reflect on why, we consult on how to improve, we study the relevant guidance, and we adjust our plans accordingly.
This requires a lot of humility, doesn't it? To be willing to admit something didn't work, or that we need to change course.
Immense humility and complete trust in God, because this learning posture forces us to acknowledge our limitations and our utter dependence on divine assistance for any real success. The ultimate goal of operating in this learning mode is continuous growth, not just in numbers, but in capacity. Maintaining the vitality of the core activities, learning how to engage people from all backgrounds more effectively, expanding the system to embrace more and more people, and steadily advancing towards that vision of the world order.
It really becomes clear how the system of the Training Institute, by systematically building individual capacity in things like teaching, consultation, service, allows this whole act of teaching to become more prominent, more central in the lives of everyday believers, propelling the whole movement forward.
Absolutely. It shifts teaching from being maybe an occasional activity for a few specialists to being an integrated, natural expression of faith for a growing body of believers working together systematically.
And we really have to end, as the source material does, by emphasizing that despite all this incredible planning, all the systems, all the strategies, ultimate success hinges entirely on divine confirmation, on God's assistance.
Completely. We plan, we act, we strive, but the results are in God's hands. The text even includes some beautiful, fervent prayers asking for that divine assistance, that strength. O my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? That sense of reliance is paramount.
So to quickly recap this whole deep dive into Section 3, we've really tried to explore that crucial difference between just proclaiming the faith and the deeper act of teaching through dialogue. We analyzed the delicate balance needed between sharing factual information and conveying profound spiritual concepts, using that wonderful Anna and Amelia case study. And importantly, we delved into the systematic approaches needed for both personal teaching, guided by Shoghi Effendi's plan, and for effective collective campaigns, understanding the conditions like unity and learning that make them work.
I think the overarching insight maybe is that the act of teaching, when it's consciously integrated into the systematic learning process of the Training Institute and the cycles of activity, it moves from being just an occasional spiritual duty for individuals to becoming the dominating, unified passion and mode of operation for the entire community. It requires both that personal care, tending the flower bed, and the large-scale systematic effort farming the vast extensions of land. Both are needed to build a new civilization.
That's a great summary. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's maybe a provocative thought for you, our listener, to take away. Building on that call from Shoghi Effendi to make it the dominating passion of our life, and considering the need he stressed for intelligent, systematic strategy and fearless action, what's just one concrete, practical, intelligent step you could take this coming week to proactively devise a method of contact or deepen a conversation with a potentially receptive soul already present in your own life circumstances? Just one step.
That's a powerful question to carry into the week. And to all our listeners, please know this journey of learning and service continues. We're really looking forward to continuing this path with you as we move into our next deep dive, starting Ruhi Book 7, which is titled Walking Together on a Path of Service.
Yes, looking forward to that. And thank you again sincerely to all our loyal subscribers, and a special welcome and thank you to our new channel members for your extra support of this content. Remember, if you haven't subscribed, please do. And if you have any further comments, questions, or suggestions on today's deep dive, please leave them in the comments section below. We do read them.
We absolutely do. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the act of teaching. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next time.